The string quartet was playing Vivaldi, crystal glasses were clinking, and the garden of the Harrington estate looked like a page torn from a fairy tale. 300 guests in designer gowns and tuxedos swirled across the marble terrace, laughing too loudly, taking selfies with the bride and groom, pretending this was just another perfect society wedding. But if you looked past the champagne towers and the 10-tier cake, you would have seen her. Amelia Harrington, 26 years old, sat alone in her wheelchair at the edge of the dance floor. Her lavender silk dress, the exact shade her late mother used to love, pooled around her like a forgotten flower. Her dark hair was pinned up with pearls. She was beautiful in the way old paintings are beautiful, quiet, untouchable, and slightly sad. No one had asked her to dance. No one had even stopped to say hello. Her father, Victor Harrington, CEO of Harrington Global, the man on the cover of Forbes last month, was busy shaking hands with senators and hedge fund princes. Her new stepmother, barely 33 and dripping in diamonds, was posing for photographers. The bride, Amelia's younger half-sister Chloe, floated from group to group in a cloud of tulle, radiant and oblivious. Amelia's fingers tightened on the armrests of her chair. She told herself it didn't matter. She was used to being invisible. Ever since the car accident 8 years ago that stole her legs and her mother in one cruel night, she had perfected the art of smiling when it hurt. But tonight the hurt felt heavier. She watched cousins she used to chase through this very garden now pretend they didn't see her. Old school friends whispered behind champagne flutes. Poor Amelia, such a tragedy, so awkward at events like this. She heard it all. She always did. A waiter finally approached with a silver tray. "Champagne, Miss Harrington?" She opened her mouth to answer when a small, sticky hand suddenly grabbed the wheel of her chair. "Up," demanded a 4-year-old boy in a tiny navy suit, his bow tie already crooked. Chocolate frosting smeared his cheeks. "I wanna dance with the princess." Amelia blinked. I'm not really." But the boy was already pushing with all his might, rolling her chair toward the dance floor while guests parted like the Red Sea, some amused, some horrified. "Lucas James Carter, you get back here right now." A deep, panicked voice cut through the music. A man in his early 30s jogged after the runaway child. Faded jeans under a navy blazer, sleeves rolled up, no tie, and the kind of exhausted kindness in his eyes that only single dads seem to carry. He looked completely out of place among the millionaires. He caught up in 3 strides, scooping Lucas into his arms. "I'm so sorry," he told Amelia, breathless. He escaped the kids' table. Again. Amelia managed a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "It's okay. Really." Lucas wriggled free, planted both hands on Amelia's knees, and looked up with deadly seriousness. "You're the prettiest princess here. Why are you sad?" The terrace went quieter than money usually allows. Amelia felt heat rush to her face. Every pair of eyes seemed to turn at once. She wanted to disappear. The man, James, she dimly remembered from the seating chart, some mid-level supplier her father had invited out of politeness, crouched so he was eye level with his son. "Buddy, we talked about personal questions." But Lucas wasn't done. "Daddy dances with me when I'm sad. You should dance with the princess." James rubbed the back of his neck, cheeks red. "Lucas, she might not." "I'd love to," Amelia heard herself say. The word surprised even her. James looked up, startled. "You don't have to." "I want to," she said, softer. If you're both okay with that." Lucas hooped so loudly half the garden laughed. James gave a sheepish grin that transformed his whole face. "Guess we're dancing, then." He offered his hand, not to push the chair, but to her, like she was any other woman at the wedding. Amelia's heart did something strange. She placed her hand in his, warm and calloused and real. Together they moved onto the polished wooden floor just as the quartet began a slow arrangement of "Can't Help Falling in Love." James kept one hand gently on the back of her wheelchair and the other holding hers, guiding them in small, easy circles. Lucas held onto his dad's leg and swayed like a tiny drunken sailor. People stared. Phones came out. Amelia felt the old shame rise. But then James leaned in just enough to murmur, "You have the bluest eyes I've ever seen." It was such a simple, corny line, but he said it like he meant it, and something inside her cracked open. Across the floor, Victor Harrington finally noticed. His smile faltered. He started toward them, but his new wife caught his arm, whispering something that made him stop. The song ended. Applause rippled, genuine this time. Lucas demanded an encore. Another song began. More couples joined. For the first time all night, Amelia wasn't alone on the sidelines. When the music paused again, James didn't let go of her hand. "Mind if we sit? This guy's legs are shorter than the attention span." They found a quiet table under fairy lights. Lucas promptly fell asleep with his head on Amelia's lap, chocolate still on his mouth. She didn't move him. James exhaled. "I owe you another apology. We crashed your sister's wedding like a toddler tornado." "You saved it," Amelia said quietly. He frowned. "From what?" "From being invisible." The honesty slipped out before she could stop it. James studied her for a long moment. "My wife died 3 years ago," he said, voice low. "Cancer." Lucas was one. "Some days I still feel invisible too. Like the world keeps spinning and forgets you're standing still." Amelia's throat tightened. "I'm sorry." "Don't be." Tonight Lucas saw a princess sitting by herself, and he decided the world was wrong. He smiled faintly. "Kid's smarter than both of us." She laughed, actually laughed, and it sounded foreign in her mouth. Victor Harrington appeared then, flanked by security that melted away when he waved them off. "Amelia," he said stiffly, "you should be with family." "I am," she answered, surprising herself again. Victor's eyes flicked to James, to sleeping Lucas, to their joined hands. Something unreadable passed over his face. Guilt, maybe. Regret. "Mr. Carter," he said, formal. "Thank you for entertaining my daughter." James's jaw tightened. "With respect, sir, I wasn't entertaining her. I was dancing with her." The air went brittle. Victor opened his mouth, closed it. For the first time in years, the great Victor Harrington looked unsure what to say to his own child. Amelia spoke first. "Dad, James and Lucas are staying for cake, right?" Victor glanced at the hundreds of watching guests, at the phones discreetly recording. He forced a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Of course. All our guests are welcome." But later, when the dance floor filled again and the bride tossed her bouquet, which Amelia caught, to everyone's shock, Victor watched from the terrace with a glass he wasn't drinking. James pushed Amelia around the gardens after midnight when most guests had gone inside. Lucas was asleep on his shoulder now. "I leave for Singapore tomorrow," James said quietly. 6-month contract. Taking Lucas with me. New school, new everything. Amelia's heart dipped. "Oh." He stopped under an arch of white roses. Moonlight spilled over them. "I know we just met. And I know your life is complicated. But I've spent 3 years being careful, and tonight I don't want to be." He shifted Lucas higher and took her hand again. "Amelia Harrington, would you let me write to you while I'm gone? Real letters. The paper kind. Lucas can draw the pictures." She laughed through sudden tears. "I'd like that very much." 6 months later. A thick envelope arrived at the Harrington estate every week. sometimes two. Inside, handwritten pages from James smelling faintly of airport coffee, pressed orchids from Singapore parks, crayon masterpieces from Lucas labeled, "For Princess Mia." Amelia read them in the sunroom her mother used to love. She wrote back, long letters at first, cautious. Then pages and pages about her physical therapy breakthroughs, about learning to drive a hand-control car, about the nonprofit she quietly started for kids with spinal injuries. Victor found the stack of letters one day. He sat in his study for a long time holding one with a child's stick figure drawing of a girl in a wheelchair wearing a crown. When James came home in December, Amelia met him at the airport herself, no driver, no security. Lucas spotted her first and sprinted, crashing into her chair with enough force to roll them both backward. James followed slower, eyes shining. Victor was waiting outside arrivals. He looked older than 6 months should allow. He approached James, offered his hand. "Mr. Carter. I owe you an apology." "Several, actually." James shook it, wary. Victor looked at Amelia, really looked at her, maybe for the first time since the accident. "I was ashamed," he said, voice rough. "Ashamed of my little girl in that chair. I thought if I kept you in the background, people wouldn't see how I failed you." "Failed your mother." Tears rolled silently down Amelia's cheeks. "I was wrong," Victor continued. "You're the strongest person I know. And I almost let my cowardice steal your happiness twice." He turned to James. "You and your son gave me my daughter back. Anything you need, ever, it's yours." James glanced at Amelia, eyes soft. "Already got everything I need, sir." 2 years later. Another wedding at the Harrington estate. This time the garden was smaller, intimate. Fairy lights and paper lanterns. No senators, no Forbes photographers. Just the people who mattered. Amelia wore her mother's rewritten wedding dress, lace sleeves and a skirt that flowed over the wheelchair like water. Lucas, now 6 and gap-toothed, walked in front carrying the rings on a velvet pillow, deadly serious about his best man duties. Victor stood at the entrance, eyes wet, waiting to wheel his daughter down the aisle himself. When the music started, he leaned down and whispered, "Your mother would be so proud." "I know I am." Halfway down the petal-strewn path, he stopped. Kissed the top of her head. Then stepped aside and let James take over. Because some things a father needs to hand over willingly. James took the handles of the chair like it was the greatest honor of his life. Lucas marched ahead scattering more petals than necessary. At the altar, beneath the same arch of white roses where they'd first promised to write letters, James knelt so they were eye to eye. "I used to think heroes wore capes," he said, voice thick. "Turns out they just keep showing up. You showed up for my son. You showed up for yourself. And somehow, you let me show up for you." Amelia smiled through happy tears. Lucas was right that night. "You did save the princess." "No," James whispered, brushing a thumb across her cheek. "You saved yourself, Amelia. We just got lucky enough to love you while you did it." They kissed before the minister even started, soft, slow, perfect. And somewhere in the front row, Victor Harrington cried without hiding it. The quartet played "Can't Help Falling in Love" again. This time, everyone danced. Even the girl in the wheelchair. Especially her. Because sometimes the people who feel the most invisible are the ones shining the brightest, they just need someone brave enough to say it out loud. And one little boy with chocolate on his face and one single dad with nothing to lose did exactly that. They reminded the world that love doesn't need legs to stand tall. It only needs heart. If this story touched you even a little, hit that like button, it really helps more people find these stories of hope. And if you're not subscribed yet, join our family. We post new stories every week about real love, second chances, and the kind of moments that remind us why we're here. See you in the next one. Stay kind out there. You never know whose day you might save.